a birthday in the house. It's Gary's birthday.
And Linda Lee's.
And Linda's, but I think Linda lied.
Oh, never mind.
So, let's sing happy birthday. Stand up. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Cha-cha-cha. Happy birthday to you. Wherever you are. Happy birthday to you. So speaking of birthdays, our next speaker is that she hates it when people talk to her when she's in the bathroom. When she was sorted onto Pottermore, she was sorted into Hufflepuff. Woo! Woo! Hufflepuff! And, but she's okay with that because she believes that if Jesus was sorted into Pottermore, he'd be a Hufflepuff too. Okay, let's welcome Steph. Woo!
Hi! It is true, I was sorted into Hufflepuff. My friend Rosalie was sorted before me, and I teased her for several weeks, like, haha, you're in Hufflepuff, you're an embarrassment to society, and then lo and behold, I got sorted too, and I'm a Hufflepuff. But I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it. Badges for the win. Okay. Okay, hi everyone, as Reagan and Tiffany said, my name is Stephanie Chang. I'm really happy to be sharing with you my testimony today. Before I do that, I'm going to read from some of the scriptures. We're going to start in John chapter 11. The story is called, is a story about three people called Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. And yeah, before I go into the story, right beforehand what happens is Jesus is chilling with his homies, and someone goes, yo, your really, really good friend Lazarus is on his deathbed. You know, can you go do something about it? And Jesus decides not to go. So this is where we pick up. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now, God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha answered, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live, even though he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, she said to him. I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who was to come into the world. And after she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. The teacher is here, she said, and is asking for you. When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who had been with Mary in the house comforting her noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, see how he loved him. But some of them said, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Take away the stone, he said. But Lord, said Martha, the sister of the dead man, by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there for 4 days. Then Jesus said, did I not tell you that if you believe, you would see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you for that you have heard me. I knew that you will always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me. When he said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out! The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen, and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. So today I'm going to be sharing about God's love and my struggles with depression. Depression to me is like having this civil war in my mind. I'm constantly battling thoughts that say, you know, you're worthless, just be quiet, you're stupid, you're an idiot. Could you be any more humiliating to be around? You don't have anything worthwhile to say. There are days when I believe that my presence is a burden unto others, and it'd be better if I was just dead or didn't exist. I don't believe anyone could ever love me if they ever really found out who I really was, or who I really am today. You know, every day it's a battle to wake up and believe that life's worth living. It's a struggle to get out of bed. It's a struggle to look into the mirror. It's a struggle to speak up in front of my friends, my professors, and my family. It's a struggle to maintain any sense of self-dignity or self-control. You know, if a trigger happens, sometimes the thoughts get so bad that I can't control myself, and I'll just end up crying in public places. It's really embarrassing. One day this past semester, a close friend of mine had asked me the hardest question I've ever had to face. She asked me, Stephanie, have you ever considered asking God to take this away from you, to heal you from this? You know, out of all the months I decided to go get help, I went to a counselor at CAPS, I started taking meds, started doing all these things. You know, I never considered asking God to take away my depression. For me, my depression isn't necessarily sadness. You know, I wasn't going to go, like, commit suicide or anything. It's just an absence of hope. And it's the reality that waking up and getting out of bed is too hard because there's just nothing to live for. When she asked me this question, in the end, I was too scared to ask God for help. It was much easier to live passively accepting that this is the way that life is supposed to be. And deep down, honestly, I was just too scared that God would say no. Somewhere along the way in my 22 years of life, I began to believe that God just didn't want me to be happy. I was living in fear because I left no room for God to work miracles in my life. I had no hope because I didn't make room for hope. And it seemed like God just doesn't care, or is too busy to see my suffering, or is just absent and cold. Did I believe that Jesus saved me and I would go to heaven? Yes. But did I believe that Jesus would come and save me from my depression? No. The reason why I like this story of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus so much is how Mary and Martha approached Jesus. They so desperately wanted to believe that Jesus loved them and cared for them. But when Jesus didn't show up, their pain and their disappointment was very true and very real. I mean, just imagine like one of your best friends had just passed away, or your mom, or your dad, or your grandpa. I say grandpa because my grandpa's in the hospital right now. You know, just imagine this happening to you. And, you know, you can just imagine their faces when they said, you know, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And I think sometimes when we're in the midst of pain, all we can see is the disappointment that's in front of us. And all we want to do is for God to fix it right now. And when he doesn't fix it right away, we assume he doesn't care. Like how I believe that God didn't care that I suffer. You know, I believe that he was just absent and just didn't care about my pain. However, if you look at the story of Mary and Martha, Jesus asked, "Where have you laid him?" And the townspeople replied, "Come and see, Lord." They invited him into their pain. And his reaction wasn't cold indifference. He was deeply moved in spirit and troubled, so much that he wept. I finally found the courage to ask God to heal me from my depression just a couple weeks ago. It was honestly one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my entire life. You know, I don't know why God didn't take away my depression right away when I asked him. The same reason why we don't know why Jesus didn't go and heal Lazarus right away when he died. Why did he wait for an extra 2 days? Why didn't he just go and comfort his two sisters? Why did he let Lazarus die? I mean, this is Jesus we're talking about. He probably knew the very moment Jesus died before anyone else did. And as people, we have to wrestle with this question too. Why does God let people suffer? Does he not see all the times I've cried alone in my room? Does he not see how hard it is for me to get out of bed every day? Does he not see the very real pain that people have to face? I think if we look at the story of Mary and Martha and Lazarus, we have to be reminded of three things. The first thing we have to be reminded of is that God cares. He cares so much that he has wept and has been deeply moved. It causes God pain when he sees suffering. He is not indifferent, he is not cold, and he is not distant. The second thing we have to be reminded of is that all suffering is temporary. And this is directly seen in Jesus' reaction to the news of Lazarus. Death did not have the last say. Suffering and pain did not win. Jesus' reaction towards Lazarus wasn't just passivity. He loved Mary and Martha and Lazarus so much and hated the pain of death so much that he called Lazarus out of the dead. And this brings me to my third point. I can't tell you why Jesus decided to wait for 2 days. I can't tell you why he let Lazarus die. I can't tell you why Jesus hasn't healed me from my depression yet. But I can tell you that Jesus did and will have the last say in the end to all suffering. At this point in the Bible, raising Lazarus from the dead foreshadows Jesus' death in the future. It's coming up really soon. Even though he was God, he became obedient to death in the pain and the brokenness of this world. But the hope that I want to tell you is that Jesus rose again 3 days after, defeating even the worst of all suffering, which is death itself. He who did not need to know sin and brokenness and suffering and death became subject to it so that we did not have to. And it's his desire for us to know this miracle and to know this truth very powerfully for ourselves. For Jesus, there is no resurrection without crucifixion. There was no miracle to be done unless he died first. Our God is not a God who is indifferent to suffering. He had to suffer too. In the same way, I think that may be a reason why Jesus didn't come right away to heal Lazarus. In the same way, I think that's the reason why Jesus hasn't healed me from my depression yet. It's not because he didn't want to, or not because he couldn't, or not because he didn't love me, but it's because he loves me that he wants me, as he wanted Mary and Martha, to know the hope that we have beyond this life. Death sucks, guys. Depression really sucks as well, and it's a reality of this world. But there's also the reality that Jesus had defeated it all, and in the end, he will have the last say. Not death, not suffering, and not depression. Our theme for tonight for Christmas Banquet is Emmanuel, God with us. And the theme of my testimony is God's love. Sometimes when God is silent and doesn't show up to comfort us in our pain, he is doing it out of love, not out of indifference. And if we can hold on to this truth, I think we can come to realize that the kind of love that God can give so radically hurts us, but also so radically helps us to understand that there is a hope beyond what we can see. God's love is something that is so good that sometimes it hurts. I want to leave you with one lasting image. On the night that Jesus was betrayed, to be unfairly nailed to the cross and to become subject to death, Jesus broke bread, poured wine, and offering them to his friends, he gave thanks. He then got down on his own hands and knees and washed their feet. I just want to take the time and say that even though death is obviously an inevitable part of my life, and that suffering is a reality that I know, I also know very intimately the joy and the hope I have in the future. I am thankful that even amidst the suffering, there's a God that's given me reason to live. Yes, it's hard to wake up every day still, but I choose to wake up every day to give thanks and receive the gift that he's given me. And on the days that I can't wake up on my own, somehow by the grace of God, he reminds me that he's faithful, and he sees my pain and that it's all temporary. Our God is a God who doesn't need people, and he doesn't need me to stick around, but he's given me the gift of life, and it's worth sticking around to see the hope for this world, even though they're suffering. I can only imagine what was going through Jesus' mind, on the night that he was betrayed, and he knew it too. I can only imagine what was going through his mind as he broke bread and gave thanks on the night he was taken. If you read the Bible, you should just read his last prayers to God in the garden and his last words to his disciples. Even though death was near, and even though Jesus had to leave us, Jesus had hope that he would return again. And it was all out of his love for us. And my hope is that you would all very intimately know the meaning of Emmanuel, God with us.